And thank you so much to my dear friend Yedid Nafshi, the Balabait, and his wife, to Itamar and to Sarah for welcoming us, and thank you so much. Like I've mentioned the last few weeks, this is the first year that we've actually continued learning throughout the summer. Usually these weeks are always off. There's so much going on, but this year we just decided there's no way we could give up on these weeks of learning. There's no way we can give up on it. It's so, every parsha is so filled with just the gems of all gems to put us into Elul, to get us ready for Rosh Hashanah. You can't just give up on these parashiot because it's summer. On the Torah there's no break, there's no vacation. Like the Rebbe's never went on vacation. I shared this with someone just 2 days ago. A few months ago in Chicago, on a Friday night, I was invited to come participate in this Shabbos where actually a neighbor of ours put together, Jerry Latinik, where it's called the Shabbos of Achdut, where they had a bunch of communities get together and spend Shabbos together. That same Shabbos in Chicago was a Shabbos Chizuk of Telz. If you've heard of Telz, the Telz, a big Telz yeshiva out in Chicago, and it was a Shabbos Chizuk of Telz. So they had, humble me, Meshuggah, a little schlepper, me do a tish with the Telz of Rosh Yeshiva. Now that means like literally mixing milchiks and fleishiks. Like I'm not going to tell you which one. I'm not going to tell you which one's milchik and which one's fleishik. That's for you guys to decide or not to decide. Maybe it's all the same. But it was very interesting. You have to just understand there's like a whole huge group of Telzer Chevra that are just like pretty much the sweetest of the sweet, but colors is not so much their thing. Not just on Shabbos, right? It's two colors that exist in the world. But anyway, we were sitting at the tish, and I wanted to just make it, break the ice because it was so interesting, the dynamics. So I said, listen, let's be honest. The last thing in the world you think of when you hear the name Karlbach is Telz. Or when you hear the word name Telz is Karlbach. But I want to share with you a story I once heard from Rabbi Shlomo. What's the story? That he remembers as a little boy taking a walk with his father in one of these vacation areas, one of these chufshot. I don't know if it was Marimbad or one of those where the father and all the great rabbanim of that generation would go in the summer and relax. So Rabbi Shlomo was taking a walk with his father, Reb Naftali, and Reb Naftali's walking around with Reb Shlomo and his twin brother, and they bump into the Telzer Rav, the Rav of Telz. So they meet the Rav of Telz, and Reb Naftali Karabach, Reb Shlomo's father, asks him, Telzer Rav, how are you? How are you feeling? Great. What are you doing here? I mean, how are you spending your time here on vacation? He's like, are you serious? Now I actually I sit and learn for 14 hours. So Reb Naftali looked at him and said, that's interesting. He said, you don't understand. I finally actually am free. So what am I going to do when I'm free? I'm free to learn. It was actually a great timing to that story because it was a week before Pesach and we were talking about the depth of freedom. Wow. What freedom means, how freedom means different things, different people. How so many people need freedom from things. Us Yidlach need freedom for things. It's completely different terminology. Freedom for versus freedom from. I'm free from doing this. Now I'm free to do something. So I told this the Chevron, this tells the Chevron, he's like, Reb Shlomo Karbach's first impression of what it means to be a ben chorin, an Eved Hashem, a servant. That's mamash, a ben chorin, free in this world. Dafka came from the tells the Rav. How did we get to this? Because these weeks that we're talking about now is like, okay, it's vacation, but maybe because it's vacation, now it's time to actually completely engross ourselves in what's going on in the weekly parshas. So having said that, we couldn't give up this week also, which we've never learned before together. Before we say that, I got an email right before class, and I want to do the learning tonight, dedicated to two very special people, Sarah Bat Peshi Rachel, she have immediate refuah shlema, and to our dear friend, Geulia Shamrona Bat Lea Rachel, Lea Rachel. All the angels should accompany her, and everything that's happening, and everything should come out B'ezrat Hashem with good news, with the best news. Sometimes we learn a Torah, we learn a teaching, and you have to imagine a certain individual in order to understand the teaching. Sometimes the teaching can be about a Rasha. Sometimes the teaching can be about a tzaddik. Sometimes the teachings that we're learning can be only about people living in Israel. Sometimes the teaching we do, the learning we do, is really associated with dafka people that don't live in Israel. Tonight, it's davar hashave lechol nefesh. Tonight's learning is things that are equal to every single neshama in the world. This is what we call a Torah klalis, a general Torah. Now, every single teaching in the Torah is a Torah klalit, meaning that it's shaykh to every single person in the world. But sometimes it's easier, sometimes it's harder to connect to it. I don't know about you guys. I started off with an incredible Elul. I started off incredible. And I walked around for the first week being so happy that it was such an incredible Elul. I was so much absorbed with the fact, it's been so good that I forgot for a second that, there's more than one day or 1 week of Elul. Elul is long. And Baruch Hashem, last few days, hitting me like mamish a ton of bricks. And it's awesome, and it kills, and it's great. In fact, one of the classes will be sending out an email, the audio from 2 years ago, which is all about the pain, the good pain of jumping into a boiling mikvah, which we'll get there also. We'll get there with Rat Hashem. We'll get there in good time. So anyway, in any event, this is all like the emotions we're going through in the month of Elul, leading up to the Parshiot, and the Parshiot leading up to Rosh Hashanah. Every Parsha we have right now is mamish, not just an optional learning. It's a prerequisite to connect and to understand what it means to stand up like this before Melech Malchei Amlachim, before the King of Kings, on Rosh Hashanah. And one of the most fundamental teachings you all have to know, as Rabbi Shlomo taught, is why is when you say Baruch, when you start off Shemona Esrei, you say Baruch Atah Hashem, blessed are you, God, and you stand up like this, because HaKadosh Baruch Hu, as opposed to other kings of the world, other worldly kings need for you to go like this in order for there to be a king-servant relationship. But the relationship that Ribono Shel Olam wants us to have is that by the end of Elul, maybe we began Elul like this, and maybe towards the middle of Elul we're even going more like this. But that by Rosh Hashanah night, by the time we sing that, it'll be the biggest Baruch Hu es Hashem HaMavorach, blessed are you, God, standing up like this, with utmost awe, utmost humility, utmost love, utmost thankfulness to the Ribono Shel Olam. And that's exactly what I feel that this week's teaching tonight, Dafka tonight's learning, really does, and it's very much shavim b'chol nefesh. And in order to take the teaching even further, it's a very short teaching as opposed to sometimes we show up with 3-4 pages and we get through maybe 20% and I tell you you have to read the rest at home, or you'll get it in an email. Tonight it's pretty short, and yet I feel like it's everything is inside here. It's back and it's 2 pages, back and it's 1 page back both sides, printed on both sides. And Bezrat Hashem Yitbarach will have a very strong, another strong step towards Rosh Hashanah with tonight's learning. Should you share it? I don't know. I think there are 30. There are about 30 copies. Okay. I really do appreciate everyone making the effort to come out, and I know there's so much going on, and I'm not saying this to be nice or because it's the right thing to do, but it's really, really what I'm feeling. So, Amash, thank you so much, Chaver, for coming out. All right, hey. I don't know how I did anything without you. I didn't even start you see? I didn't do anything. Okay. Give me a hug, man. Maybe if they're going around. How you doing? Okay. Okay, let's get right to it. And Chavre, those of you who are learning with us for the first time, even though it's in English, please let's learn shlav by shlav, paragraph by paragraph. Let's do this together. The Shem Yichud Kutsha Brichu. So here's how Rabbi Shlomo begins. The beginning of our parsha is Ki Teitze LaMilchama Al Oivecha. When you go out to battle your enemies. That's how this Shabbos begins. Going out to war. And Reb Shlomo is going to be looking very deep, again, into the first pasuk of the parsha and the end of the parsha. We have a concept in Chazal, Na'utz tchilatan besofan vesofan betchilatan. Most things in Yiddish, the deeper something is, there's hidden, there are messages from the beginning that are connected to the end, and end that are connected to the beginning. So sometimes in parshas, for instance, like Parshat Shlach, the beginning of the parsha is directly connected to the end of the parsha. And the end of the parsha is connected to the beginning of the parsha. How does the beginning of Parshat Shlach begin? The story of the scouts, of the meraglim, of the spies. How does the parsha end? Parshat Shlach, what's Shvi? Of Parshat Shlach, Tzitzis, Parsha of Tzitzit. What's the connection? The meraglim sinned with their eyes where they saw Eretz Yisrael. What do we do with Tzitzis? It says, Uritem oto uschartem. By looking at the tzitzis, it's supposed to remind you of all the mitzvahs of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. What's the beginning of our parsha? Going out to war. By the way, just have to plug this in. My daughter's name is Tiferet, starts with Taf and ends with Taf. In the middle is Pe'er, which means glory. So I'm very connected to this teaching, very, very much. Okay. The beginning of our parsha is Ki Teitze le'milchama aloivecha, when you go out to battle your enemies. And when the Torah talks about someone going out to war, it writes it in singular. Right? Ki Teitze, not Teitzu in plural. Teitze, you shall go out. So let me ask you, friends, how can one Jew go out and conquer the world? That's basically what the pasuk says. You alone are going to go out, not oivcha, not on one of your enemies, al oivecha, on all your enemies. And what does the pasuk say right afterwards? Unesana Hashem lakecha biyadecha. And God's gonna give it to you. God's gonna give you your enemies, in plural, in your hand. Biyadecha v'shavita shivyo. And by the way, Chaver, this should be a zgula for Be'ezrat Hashem going after all our, God knows how many enemies we're surrounded by all over the place. It should be a zgula for us to have holy, holy guts to know when it's right, when you have to go out to war. Be'ezrat Hashem, only b'shalom, only bringing more peace to the world, not, God forbid, the other way. So Rabbi Shlomo says like this. Again, the question is, how do we understand Hashem saying to us, one person's going to go out and conquer the world? That's what the pasuk says. We're just sticking to pshat. That's what the pasuk says. One person's going to go out, he's going to wage war, and he's going to conquer all the enemies. That's the pshat of the first pasuk. Now look how Rabbi Shlomo takes it to the next level. Here comes the deepest. There are two struggles going on in our lifetime. One struggle is going on inside, deep down inside. And this struggle is when I don't even know if I want to be a Jew. I don't know if I should keep Shabbos. I don't know if I should be married to my wife or not. I already have grown-up children, but I haven't decided yet if I should have had children. Some people are sitting in Israel, they still don't know if they should have ever left America. These are all real inside struggles. Okay, this is a real struggle, which I can't say what people do. I can't say which struggle people struggle with more, this or what we're about to read. But I do know that when these struggles do take place in life, you can't do anything real. Because you're paralyzed, you're caught, you're stuck, and you think that if you don't deal with it and you just beat around, if you just do other things that are even holy things, you don't have to deal with this, somehow you'll get back on track. Some of these things are very, very deep, but it's amazing how many people who are brought up in a religious home, so they think that they are in tune with what being a religious Jew means, and then at a certain point in life, like, wait a second, do I believe any of these things that I was kind of born into? Now, I want to say something very heavy, but what's the problem with those types of people? Not with them, but with the scenario, is that they think that it's usur, it's God forbid, it's wrong for them, it's not permissible for them to even have those thoughts. Because even having those thoughts means that I'm an apikoros, that I'm a heretic, and that I'm a rasha gomer, that I'm a complete fool. But you know what we know. That if you're living in today's day and age and you don't have those thoughts once in a while, at a certain point in life, then something's really wrong with you, or you're what the Tanya calls a complete tzaddik. A tzaddik v'tovlo. But if you ask in Lubavitch, who's a tzaddik v'tovlo, there are only 7 of those, right, in the world. So, having these issues, these internal struggles, these deep, deep struggles, I'm not recommending it to anybody. It's not something I'm saying, okay, Chaver, by the way, we learned this is a struggle you have to go through. No. This is a struggle in this world, in 2013, that whether you were brought up from, not from, Jewish, not Jewish, you are going to have them. You're going to have them because confusion only goes one direction. More in this world. I had a friend sit in my room 2 hours ago, pouring out his heart to me, and I realized that he's not dealing with issues that really used to bother him, which were political issues. Not political issues. I hate to say the word political when it comes to what took place yesterday and today in Israel with the release of all these not even human beings, these animals. These things, we're living in the utmost confusing time, and people can say, well, now is the test of Emunah. Okay, it is a test of Emunah. Every day is a test of Emunah. Since 6 million Jews were put into a gas chamber, it's a test of Emunah. What's the difference today than any other day? Because I think about things less. So everything is this test of this internal struggle. How much am I really, really Jewish? Even if I'm sometimes really high on what I'm learning and what I'm feeling and what I'm teaching. You know, in Breslov, there's room for these thoughts because it's a Rav Nachman calls it's Ratzav Hashov. There's up and down. There's inside out. This is our journeys in this world, and one of the reasons why Breslov has really caught so many people and saved so many neshamas in this world is because it says you're not crazy for having these internal struggles. They're real. A nisayon, a test from God, doesn't mean that He's going to give you something that's going to be very hard for you to believe in Him, but you still believe in Him 100%. A test in God means you go through ups and downs, but the whole time you continue to be in direct dialogue with God. And there's a big difference between that and saying, I pass it with flying colors. No internal struggles by me. Like we're all in this. We're all in this together. I just saw an article recently that maybe 10 years ago would have shocked the world, but it was an article about rabbis who are having a very difficult time with their emunah. As far as I read, it didn't say they stopped being rabbis. It said this is where it's at. This is where it's at in this world. So, again, this is not a recommendation, and it's not, God forbid you should leave the class saying, we learned that maybe the best thing for us is next Monday to stop believing in God. Chas v'shalom. That's kindergarten way of learning what we're learning in here tonight. We're just addressing those things which are always in our hearts. But unfortunately, we live in a world, it's getting better, but we're still living in a world, at least the religious world, where we think that to voice those opinions and thoughts lead to heresy. God forbid, it doesn't lead to heresy. It shouldn't lead to heresy. It should just lead to people not feeling so alone like they are in this world. People feeling so much less lonely in this world. I heard yesterday, a friend of mine, 2 days ago, a friend of mine told me, my brother told me, that a big Rebbe called a mutual friend of ours who does very big things in the world. And he has a Rebbe. And his Rebbe called him in the middle of the night and he said to him, so-and-so, ata dafuk, which means, you're messed up. And then he says, vani dafuk, and I'm messed up. Bo niyeh dfukim beyachad. Let's just be messed up together. This is a Rebbe with tons of Hasidim and Sfarim. When I hear those stories, that's when I begin to have hope. Not when a Rebbe gets up and gives a drasha and says, this is all a test of emunah, and the worst thing in the world you could think of is even having a horrible thought. Okay. This is internal struggles. But then there's another struggle. Next paragraph. And this struggle takes place when my inside is already fixed. When my inside is already fixed. It's mamish clear to me in 2 million ways that I cannot move an inch away from the Torah. I just can't, even if I wanted to. Let's say I met this beautiful girl and I decided that I'm going to take off of Yiddishkeit for a week. So I told her, do me a favor, come to the Moshav at 9 o'clock this Friday night. She comes in a limousine, and I promised her I would take her out to Tel Aviv and we'll have some Chinese food. And let me ask you, in all honesty, can I walk out from the Moshav on Friday night, step into a limousine, and go with this girl to have Chinese food? not even a question of choice. I look at my feet and they don't move. They simply don't move. Now, by the way, that's Baruch Hashem. Most of us are more in that arena. Okay? You know why? What's the first sign if you make a covenant with God? Look what he says here. That there are certain things inside that I don't have to struggle with anymore. I'm a Yid. Inside, I don't have to struggle anymore. Sure, it's hard. You have to make decisions every minute. God is testing you every second of your life. So what I'm doing is only fixing the outside. It's clear to me I can't step into limousine Friday night and go into a discotheque in Tel Aviv. I can't. So where is this struggle? Open your hearts in the deepest way. Like a person like this, where does he struggle? We don't have to decide, am I going to turn on the light or not turn on this Friday night? Like, am I going to do it or not? That's not this week. That's not the struggle. Many of us that are already more or less into Yiddishkeit, our thing isn't like, when I go to visit my parents or a brother in America, and I pass by Burger King, am I going to be able to not eat a cheeseburger? At a certain point, you kind of, it's not part of that's not the struggle, that's not the main test. But don't think that those people don't have tests. Where's the struggle over there? Look what Rabbi Shlomo says. So where is this struggle? Open your hearts in the deepest way. I have choice when I'm sitting by my Shabbos table. I can sit there and say bad things about other people, or I can mamish keep Shabbos in the deepest depths. I struggle when I know what Yom Tov is, but I can get away with not keeping it on the deepest level. This struggle, Chevra, is sometimes more torturous than the other struggle. Why? Because it relates to those people who, well, I can't not keep Shabbos, and I can't not keep kosher. But me and getting deep and going, oh, yeah, Friday night, come on, there's no way. Of course I'm going to go to the Kotel once a year, or maybe once every 2 years, but to actually daven there, think about Beis HaMikdash, that's not me. That's not me. That's a struggle. Of course, and this is a struggle, and this, I want to just make sure we're clear. The first struggle is, was there ever a Beis HaMikdash? Was there ever a holy temple? Do I really believe there was ever a holy temple? The second struggle is, there was a holy temple, what in the world does it have to do with me today? What do you think's harder to deal with? What do you think's a greater war? So again, like I said before, I don't want to chas v'shalom think that I'm bichlal on the level to say, what's a greater war? I don't dare pretend that I know any of you and that I even know myself, but definitely I could never say that I know what people really deal with. I could say, those of us, we kind of maybe connected things a bit more deeper over here versus over here. But at the end of the day, even people that have trouble connecting to Shabbos, even though they're from their whole life, they also have moments of, did any of this ever really happen? Did any of this ever really happen? Now, why are we saying all this? We will see in 1 minute. But before that, as I was reading this, as I was working on this this morning, something came up so strong for me. In the middle of this paragraph, he says something that I don't know if we ever actually did. Even men at the age of, after they're 8 days old, if they ever did this on a spiritual level in their life. What's the first sign if you make a covenant with God? That there are certain things inside that I don't have to struggle with anymore. This is what it means to do a bris, to do a covenant. A covenant we learned, was it last Shabbos, 2 Shabbos ago? Umaltem es orlas levavchem. Was last Shabbos? 2 weeks. It was last Shabbos or in Re'eh. That every person has to do a circumcision of the heart. Because there's the orla of the heart, there's the covering of the heart. And don't think that you can approach Rosh Hashanah without taking off the orla of the heart, removing that which is covering all feelings and emotions, all real relationship with the Ribono Shel Olam. It's really removing what we've been calling checklist Yiddishkeit. You have to get rid of that. There is no other way. There's absolutely no other way. But I want to just say this deeper, and I'll explain it to you, what it means to do a bris today, a real covenant with God. Yesterday on the plane, something amazing happened. Say next to this Yid, 85 years old, Persian guy, wasn't wearing a kippah, and Dafka saying didn't wear a kippah, and he started telling me. Usually I ask. I was very tired, but usually I have a lot of questions, and I'm very interested. I'm fascinated by people. Some of us are fascinated by people. It's a very beautiful thing. I'm totally fascinated by people. But anyway, I couldn't. I was so exhausted that I was just like, this time I'm just gonna pass. I'm sure he has a great story, and we'll pass. Anyway, he then right away before we even take off, Shalom Aleichem, Ech kolim lecha, ani kach vekach. What's your name? I'm so and so. Shalom Aleichem, pretending I'm sleeping. And he was much shorter than me, so he didn't. I was like this. He didn't see that my eyes were closed, so he just was looking. He's like, "Me'efata, where are you from?" I didn't have the heart to pretend, to pretend snoring or anything. So we started talking, and it was all I said. I got it, Elul. I get it, Hashem. It's fine. Dafka when the one time Dafka. And I hear it. So wake up call. So I said to him. I did have one question. We were talking about the fact that he fought in the Milchemet Ha'atzmaut in the War of Independence, and he remembers Yerushalayim. He remembers like bribing British officers. I was like, okay, look, there's something here, Shlomo. It's not just anybody sitting next to you. This is a Gibor Yisrael. This guy's a hero. He's in his 80s, So I said to him, "You're from Paras, huh? You're from Persia." I said to him, well, "Your father, you must have come from a home of a lot of tradition, very rich of Jewish tradition." So he says to me, "Are you kidding me? My father had they always say this, you realize? My father had a beard till here, he was a Rav. Everyone I've met always say that. My father had a beard till here and he was a Rav. All the Yemenites and Sfard, Persian Chaver, always, their fathers had beards and they were Rabbeim." So then he says to me, "Gam ani dati." What does it mean? "Ani mitparel kol yom, ani mevarech." He says to me, I wake up every morning, I daven, I say blessings, I have food. He says, "But I have cousins, they're the crazies, those guys that sit and learn. Like, they sit and learn, they don't care about anything, they just sit and learn and learn Torah. They should be good, everything's good, but I don't go too crazy," he says. Now then he says to me, "Look, we have a brit with God. It's as simple as that. Yesh lanu brit im Elokim." Kept on saying, we have a covenant with God. So this is what I have to do. It's not even like, there's no chatterbox in there regarding the internal struggles. And I just want to say something very harif, very spicy and hard to swallow. But the more discussions I have with my friends of mine, this seems to be the case. Not anymore, but especially in the last generation. You don't really see reform Sephardic shuls, or conservative or modern Orthodox Sephardic shuls, or Haredi Sephardic shuls. You have shuls. You have a Beit Knesset. Why? Because I don't have to struggle with it, because there's a brit with God. I don't have to struggle. There's a covenant. Whether I'm slacking or not, that's my own cheshbon. But the internal struggle, at least in the last generation, different story. Completely different story. When he said those words, we have a brit with Hashem, I felt like the lowest piece of Lakshan Kugel in the world. Because sometimes we get so deep in Chassidus and we're trying to make yichudim and saying brachas and 48 mikvahs instead of 12, all the different things we take upon ourselves, this and that. Wait a second. Did I ever make a covenant with God? Stop for everything. Just stop all the balaganim. Did I ever make a bris with the Kadosh Baruch Hu? You know, the first word of the Torah is Bereshit, and there's many, many different words that come out of that word Bereshit with different form of order of letters. But one of them is that God started the Torah with the word Bereshit because it's the letters Esh Brit, Brit Esh, a covenant of fire. That's Bereshit, spells out Esh Brit Esh, a covenant of fire. Because essentially, to make it in this world, I have to remove as many internal struggles as I need to. To what? So that I could even make it. Pashat. So that I can make it. Now again, why am I not going too deep into this, even though I think about this all the time, I want you to know? I mean, again, the Sfardish Chevra, they suffered plenty. Don't ever use hey, we had 6 million over you guys. That's usher to go into. We don't even know what the Sfardish Yidden suffered through. Yidden have suffered plenty, enough. So there's something of this emunah pshuta, of this kabbalat ol malchut shamayim, of a brit, of a covenant with God, that I see more. That yesterday this Jew on the plane told me, I'm telling you, I started doing, I have a long, long way to go, but when he said that, I realized, I have absolutely no idea what tshuva means. I have absolutely no idea what it means to repent. I have no idea where to begin. I have no idea where to end. I have no idea what any of it means. I do know one thing. Whatever this guy is on, I want to be on too. That's all I know. My ratzon, my will, was to remove all the confusion. I'm sure this guy struggles in life. He's a human being. He's living in this world. I'm sure he goes through his own tzaras. I'm sure he has his own problems. I'm sure, I hope not, but I'm sure he does. But the nikuda, the inyan is that he just, for him, that was pashut. So, I only brought that up to try to explain what Rabbi Shlomo means by these two types of struggles. The struggles of do you exist or not versus do you really need me to wait 3 hours or 5 hours or 6 hours, or if you're Dutch, 1 hour between meat and milk. Okay? The two types of struggles. Why are we saying any of this? Look at the next paragraph. So you see what it is. Second paragraph from the bottom. A person who still has inside struggles, don't you dare go out converting the world. You're not on the level yet. When the Torah is talking about Ki Teitze milchama, when you're going out to battle, we're talking about someone who is inside, is Baruch Hashem, strong like a lion. He's giving very clear cue of instructions over here. Very clear. Obviously, we're not just talking about a war against enemies. Everything the Torah is talking about, kiruv levavot, about the war of the klippas, of the war of all those things which stand between man and God. It's talking about on a certain level, the whole hashpa'ah, the whole influence of the Western world. With all the good that's there, but with all the klipot that are there, all the shells that are there as well. What he's saying over here is that, and I had this conversation with my dear friend Rabbi Raz Hartman. We were talking about how do you know if you can go out into the world and do something big and not care what people think about what you're doing? Mamish, not care, not be influenced by their opinions and thoughts about what you're doing in the world. Right? So we were saying, he said, look, when a person has enough Torah, mamish, when a person has enough Torah inside, they don't care. They know. They have their own Sefer Torah. They don't have to do cheshbonot, what someone thinks. Can you imagine if Reb Moshe Feinstein thought too much about what people would think about his psaks? Do you think there'd be Yiddishkeit in America? Maybe in Monroe. That's it. So here we're seeing that means even more. How can when can a person really go out into the world? Not just leave a little stamp, but dent the world in the holiest way. Mamish dent it. Maybe put a good curve, carve himself into the world and bring people to HaKadosh Baruch Hu in the strongest way, in a way that lasts forever. only if he does not have the internal struggles which we spoke about. It's like this guy yesterday on the plane, I don't know if he ever opened up a Gemara. I don't know if he ever heard of Rebbe Levi Yitzchak Berditchever. I have no idea if he ever even heard of the Tikkun HaKlali, and if he did, what he would think about it. It's not important. But what I do know is that he can talk to someone from where he's coming from. It's amazing. Now there are people that go through the internal struggles and then they come to that place. It's not like, oh, I reached perfection, now I know there's no struggles, but they already passed through that. It's a stage in life, they went through it. They passed through it. This is more you and I. We're going through it constantly. But at the end of the day, when if mamish push came to shove, and someone told us, bow in front of an idol right now, the Tanya puts much more trust and faith into us than we do. The Tanya says, there's a whole parak, a whole chapter discussing the nature of a Jewish soul, Mesirus Nefesh, the dedication of the soul, how it's so incredible, how you and I, it's like we don't even know how we do this, but we're connected to some place that is pashut, would never, ever, ever accept certain things in this world. Ever. Right now, talking about it, we'd be like, no, we'd probably bow down. But if push came to shove, our neshamas would never let us. And we're talking about people that go through these internal struggles all the time. But in terms of going out and conquering a war, Ki Teitze la milchama lo'evecha, yes, one person can go and conquer the whole world. If what? He has a bris with the Kadosh Baruch Hu. Example given, Avram Avinu and 31 kings. Pashat. As simple as it is. Bottom paragraph. Do you know when one Jew is not able to go out and conquer the world? When this one Jew has not finished the struggle of the inside. Obviously, if I'm not so sure yet there's one God, if I'm not 100% sure that Shabbos is really necessary, I cannot come to the world for God. And this is a classic line Rabbi Shlomo says all the time. I cannot learn Torah for 200 years. I can learn Torah for 200 years, but deep, deep inside, if there's one little corner left where I doubt that every word of the Torah is really from heaven, then I can't really conquer anything. Heavy words, no? Again, this is a heavy word. If there's one corner left where I doubt that every word of the Torah is really from heaven, then I can't really conquer anything. Do you know what every word of the Torah means? It means also all those things that you absolutely don't understand, and all those things you maybe don't agree with. Even those things. You know what it's called? It's called complete bittul. This level of complete self-nullification before something that's much, 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 much greater than you. But this amazing feeling of knowing that even though I don't understand it, I fully believe in it. Look, I bless us all to experience love. But if you're able to understand the experience, then you don't need any emunah in your relationship. Then you don't need any belief in davening and prayers in your relationship, because you understand it. But what about love when you don't understand, but you know that you love the person? You don't understand why you love this person. They drive you insane. And you drive them insane. And yet what's there? What's it called? A brit. What's marriage called? A covenant, a brit nisuin. And I highly recommend Rabbi Yitzchak Ginsburg's book, that name actually, Brit Nisuin, the covenant of marriage. Marriage is a covenant between two people. And when you have that covenant, you don't wonder every single day, should I stay with you or should I not? Because there's a covenant. You removed that factor from the relationship. You don't have to make decisions all day long. You know, we speak about all the time in this class is like, right now again, it's 9:21. Just go back to 4:21, 5 hours. Begin to understand what our lives are like and what kind of crazy road this is. How many decisions did you have to make in the last 5 hours? Now, when it comes to people you love the most, did you have to decide? How many times did you have to decide in the last few hours if you really love them or not? Why is it? It's because certain things, once you go through the Ovracha Bivrit, Hashem Elokecha Ba'alaton, we're going to read in Parshat Nitzavim in a few weeks, in 2 weeks. The whole thing is to pass through a covenant in this world. This is what it is. What does it mean to pass through a covenant with God? To remove all the unnecessary decision-making, which can clog our minds and our brains, and more profoundly, our hearts. They clog your heart, and therefore you have to do a covenant, a brit of the heart. Umaltem et orlat levavchem. You have to do a circumcision on the foreskin of the heart. Why? Because all those decisions, do I really believe in you or not? Is this for real or not? You know what it does? That clogs the heart. And therefore you need a bris milah right there. You need a covenant of the heart right there. I just want to say, I can't stand when we learn these Torahs and our faces become like what a lot of us look like right now. We should be so happy, Chavra. I wish the camera, maybe next time, put it over here. And homework is, I'm going to send you guys, I'm going to say, guys, you have to look at each one of your faces, and I want you guys to all realize that that is not the point of learning. The point of learning is not to say, I really feel bad, but it's the month of Elul, so it must mean it was a good shiur. What a bracha! What a bracha! We can even talk about these things in public. What a bracha! We have a rabbi who's actually sharing this interpretation of going out to waging war. What a bracha this is! Awesome! It's awesome. And here we are coming to the end of our parsha. Remember we said in the beginning of the parsha is directly connected to the end of the parsha, just like in Parshat Shlach with the Meraglim, connected to Tzitzis, which is the end of Shlach. What does the parsha, our parsha, begin with? Going out and waging war. How does the parsha of Ki Teitze end? Amalek. The biggest enemy Am Yisrael ever had and has. And here we're coming to the end of our parsha, wiping out Amalek. Our holy rabbis teach us that Amalek is the numerical value of Safek, doubt. Amalek isn't saying anything bad about God, but it's saying, are you sure? By the way, I never understood why the gematria of Amalek is Safek so much until now. I shouldn't say understand. I never felt a connection to that gematria of Safek like I do right now. Why? Because what is the greatest war that we have to go out where there in the world? The greatest war is really, are you really certain about your beliefs? Mamish certain about it? Because then, what are those questions put into us? They inject us with that poison called Safek. And then, whether I go out to the world or I don't, I go on a tour and I think I'm sharing Gevalt things or not, that poison is there. And anyone that's in attendance, they could smell it from 1,000,000 miles away. This is something that then you cannot cover up from neshamas. The soul detects this. The soul smells this crystal clear. You could be saying the right words, and you could be singing the right songs. But the soul, mamish, knows when a person is injected with this poison and when it isn't. And that's why, and Reb Nachman is so big on this. When it comes to making sure you listen to music from the right people. If you're blessed to listen to music from the right people. I always say there's two people I always recommend, if you really want a mikvah for your neshama, put on Yosef Karduner for a few minutes, and put on my brother, Eitan Katz. You're set. You're set. That's a little bris of the heart. That's a little umaltem et orlat levavchem. Remove the foreskin. That's right there, because you stop having a lot of questions. Or maybe you still have them, but you don't have to deal with them because they don't matter anymore. They don't matter anymore. But again, Amalek comes at the end of this parsha. You know why? Because Amalek says, you're going to go out to the world. That's great. You're going to do big things in the world. I'm great. I just want to, just for your sake, I just want to make sure. Are you sure you know what you're doing? Are you sure you believe in it? For your sake. Remember, Amalek disguises itself like the greatest holiness in the world. Amalek, the greatest evil in the world is that evil which disguises itself as good, not evil like we have today, surrounding us. There's no disguise here. Not evil like the 104 behemoth animals that are being released. That's clear. That's not Amalek. That's clear evil. You just have to wipe that out, regardless if the Torah tells you or not. We're talking about something deeper. That evil which comes in the name of, I want to make sure that you're on the right path, and telling you, are you really sure you believe in what you're saying? I wouldn't say this unless I heard it from Rabbi Shlomo. But Rabbi Shlomo once said that the greatest Amalek sometimes is not just the form of like people that, asher korcha baderech, they wage war on you when you're when you're least expected. Amalek can be those people that are actually physically closest to us in life, but they don't really believe that we could change because they say, I know you. I know you really are. You're going through like the Frum Attack, Shana Aleph experience where you come home for Pesach and you're already wearing a black hat, if you know what I mean. I know you. Don't worry. You'll be back to the way you looked in high school in a few minutes. I'm not going to get so excited about the way you're looking right now. I'll never forget this. One time I was in West Orange, New Jersey, and it was Rosh Chodesh Adar, and I was saying over this whole piece where we just said, but a bit more. I was just really feeling it very strong. And some guy started dancing around me right afterwards when I sang a song in circles, and he kept on winking at me, and I made just a very welcoming nod and everything, as if we're best friends. I had no idea who he was. He had a long beard and payas. He comes closer. He says, Shlomo, and he said his name. The guy wasn't 17. He wasn't 19. He was 55. He wasn't 55, a lonely schlepper, couldn't get his life together, going through changes in life. Because last time I saw him, he just had a nice little mustache. This guy's a big, gvir, balabas, amazing person who just made Aliyah, Baruch Hashem. Or is in transition, making Aliyah. He didn't care what people thought about him in a holy, holy way. He did not let Amalek get there. He didn't let all those people that would say, look what he's going through. He's going through this, Mapitom. And Amalek shows up there as well. But here Rabbi Shlomo is saying, the suffix is, are you sure? Those words, are you sure? Not coming from a caring parent. Not those words, are you sure? So look here. You see what it is, the greatest second to bottom paragraph. The greatest evil is not that voice that tells me, step into a car on Friday night and go to a discotheque. Yeah, it's a cute little retail evil. He used to say this all the time. That's retail evil, but wholesale evil? Wholesale evil doesn't tell you what to do. Wholesale evil just comes and says, are you positive? You're a thinking person. You have a PhD in logic. Are you sure this Shabbos thing is for you? You see, friends, our real struggles in life, we come from this place where the inside isn't fixed yet. It's when I still have my doubts deep inside. Let's say I have trouble keeping Shabbos. So if I go out and turn you on to Shabbos, what kind of a Shabbos am I turning you on to if every Friday night you're struggling to keep Shabbos? This is only when you received Shabbos from someone who is also a little bit Amalek and is not sure about Shabbos himself. This is very strong words, Chevra. Very strong words. I don't even have to... Sometimes when he ends, we then really try to understand everything he's saying. You don't need a lot of extra words here. What you need to is, what I need to do, is to wrap a very strong prayer over these words we just learned. That's the only thing we need to do right now. Is to really seal this learning, seal the Parsha, which begins with waging war and ends with fighting Amalek, is to really is to wrap this with a tefillah, with a prayer. Never before in Am Yisrael, I don't think, again, this is just, everything I'm saying right now is, it's a little bit of my personal opinion, but I've been talking a lot, discussing a lot of these inyanim with a lot of friends lately. Like I said a few weeks ago, every conversation these days is like the deepest philosophical debate. Every meeting between friends there's no room there's no time anymore, just to talk about shtuyot, talk about nonsense. There's just no time anymore. Not just because it's Elul, because the world is in a state of Elul, not because of the calendar. Even if we were in November right now, I'd say it's Elul, and probably we felt like Elul last November, but something huge is happening. Something much greater. I'm not saying we're stricken with sadness, although plenty of people who have every reason in the world to be happy are stricken with sadness. But they don't understand. What's the root of it? The root of it is the internal struggles. It's not sadness because of actual reasons in life to be sad. Real simcha has nothing to do with reason. Like one time Rabbi Shlomo, I shared this with you many times. One time Rabbi Shlomo was giving over a whole teaching of Rabbi Nachman on joy. And at the end of the shiur, someone came up to him and said, Shlomo, look, I'd love to, I'd love to take on everything you're saying and feel it, but look at my life. Look at what's going on in my life. He says to him, Shmendrik, real simcha has nothing to do with reasons. What are you talking about? He says, it's amazing. Like when we're hungry, imagine if you were hungry and someone comes up to you and says to you, would you like a sandwich? So you say, what good is it going to do for me? I'm going to be hungry later. We don't ever have that conflict, right? We don't ever not eat because we know we'll be hungry later. When it comes to simcha, like, what good is these reasons to be with simcha now? I know these other things are waiting for me on the other side. Ki Teitze milchama levecha has a million different perushim, and it's good to be really kedai. You should all look, especially in Lubavitch. There's a lot of different ways of understanding what this war is, and look in Rashi also, especially the beginning of this parasha. However, all of us right now are surrounded by a plague. The plague is called the internal struggle. It's also the other struggle of how deep my Shabbos is, how real my mitzvahs are, how much my orthodoxy is really for real. Now that's more, like Amalek ties in both things. He says, are you sure about even the stuff that you think you're clear about? So when we talk about Mashiach coming, we say, Umala haaretz dea et Hashem. That the whole world, what does that mean? It means that we say this, by the way, we're going to be saying by Tashlich, you say these words. Umal'a haaretz dea et Hashem. The whole world is going to be filled with the knowledge of God. And we always refer to knowledge, especially in Hasidic circles, as least special, because it's not about knowledge, it's about heart. But when it comes to the knowledge of Hashem, what does it mean, the da'at of Hashem? What does it mean, the da'at of Hashem? The da'at of Hashem is living in a constant consciousness that I'm part of a covenant. And the beautiful thing about this is that even if I myself don't feel like I took on a covenant, it's okay, because my parents took it on for me. My parents put me through this when I was born. I'm in this already, generations and generations back. There's something much greater than like all of us today, to make it in today's day and age, it's not about getting to a certain conclusion. It's about tasting for a split second that there's a much higher and deeper world of reality that's really taking place in the world, that's much more real, much more meaningful, and much more everlasting than the realities that we're usually stuck in on a day-to-day basis. Just knowing that world exists is enough for most of us to make it and to hold out to the great day to come. But, like we always say, we need to do both. In this world, it's not enough to know that the great day will come, but it's like the Rebbe said, that each Jew has an obligation to scream 2 words every single day. Ad matai. Ad masai. Until when? What does that mean? It means, Ribono Shel Olam, this is our prayer. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, until when will mothers have to make a million decisions regarding the safety of their children walking in the streets of Eretz Yisrael? Until when will we be so confused as religious people amongst religious people? Until when, Ad Masai, will we have to go through, in order to get through one day of our lives, will we have to make decisions as if like we're Avram Avinu about to sacrifice our son Yitzchak on the Akedah? How many more decisions? It should be your will, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that our will, it should all be one. That Be'ezrat Hashem, we should have enough guts to go through the internal struggle without shame and embarrassment, and not feel as lonely as we usually do over there. All Yidden, every type, humanity, all humanity, but specifically Am Yisrael. Be'ezrat Hashem, we should go through it because there's no other way to crown the king. Just like we said, there's no other way of going out there and beating armies, doing huge kiruv in the world. Because like you said, if you go out to the world with an internal struggle and you turn someone on to Shabbos, guess what? His Shabbos is going to be filled with, are you sure? For the rest of his life, it's a pretty heavy statement. So Yismechul Malchuscha, it says, we say, Kulam yizbe'u v'yisangam mitovecha. Everyone will have this sova, this nourishment, this sustenance, this feeling. It should be clear to us, Kadosh Baruch Hu, that the only way to crown you as a king on Rosh Hashanah, the only real way to bring this new year on with such simcha and bitachon, is to not avoid the internal struggles. I don't mean go into deep philosophical conversations, God forbid. That's the worst thing in the world. But dafka, in that place when you're not sure about things, that's when you have to call out to God the most. And then you know what happens when you call out to God, when you're not sure if God exists? What does that mean? It means you fooled yourself. And you beat yourself even. Like one time I was at a concert of a Baal Tshuva, an Israeli Baal Tshuva. He's doing an amazing show in Tel Aviv. He had recently become frum, but he didn't stop singing his songs from before the Tshuva. And he has one song, the chorus is like this. Over and over again. And the whole crowd in this treif restaurant is swinging side by side. And my wife and I and a friend were sitting in the back, doing our like Maris Ayin thing as careful as we can, just coming late, sitting in the back, no one would see us. And at the end of the song he says, he says, you didn't notice, but
wow.
What does it feel? What does it feel to daven?
Wow.
What does it feel like? You know when we daven the most? When we're really not sure. We really daven the most when it comes to internal struggles. thank you so much for coming. Give us all a bracha and give me bracha back to remember that those things we take upon ourselves in life, no matter what age, no matter what stage, and then we were like, oh my God, whether it's a diet, whether it's a therapy, whatever it is, and we're like, oh my God, how did I live? How did I live without it? How did I live until now? It should be this feeling of it is never too late to take upon yourself a bris with the Kadosh Baruch Hu. Take upon yourself a covenant with the Kadosh Baruch Hu. And then when you live one day of your life with maybe one less suffix, one less internal struggle, one more, you say, how did I really think? First of all, how did I consider myself to be a religious Jew? You'll get there too, but did I really think that I could actually live in this world and give over anything to anybody, especially to my children, unless I go through the internal struggles? Who are we kidding? It shouldn't feel frightening or paralyzing. It should feel welcoming. The simcha, Elul's both. Elul's ira and avit. It's both. It's total awe and trepidation, and it's also total thankfulness to Kadosh Baruch Hu that these are the things I deal with, and not other shtuyot in life, not other nonsense. All right, Chavre. Thank you so much. We're going to be davening. Thank you again to our Baalei Habayit. Thank you so much. We all really appreciate it. And we're going to daven Mariv right now.